So you're very welcome to Konnichiwa, I was going to say, to begin with, and you're very welcome to Suzuka International Racing Course. Of course, one of the most iconic tracks in the world. We do keep bringing in the best of the best for round 5 of the IDMC LMP2 and GT3 autumn season. My name is Kevin Galvin. I'm joined by my new partner in crime, Lawrence Tosozwa. Unfortunately, you can't see his beautiful face like we could a few weekends ago in the incredible city of Warsaw. We'll talk about the Digital-Motorsports World Cup very, very soon. But Lawrence is back to the bread and butter this week. And, bread and butter makes it sound mundane. This championship across both classes is well up for grabs.
We've had such an exciting 2 weeks. We kind of had a little bit of a break or time to not think about this. But today, as I was preparing for this stream again, I started looking at the points, started kind of watching back the last stream. And my God, we're in for a good one tonight.
Yeah, really, really good one. Very, very close at both the LMP2 class and the GT3 class. We are looking at the standings there in a second. We've Ronan Hederman on cameras, of course, doing a brilliant job as ever. Ronan was over with us in Warsaw as well. And hopefully we'll have Niall Maher on later on, one of the heads of Digital Motorsports. But the LMP2 class, you're looking at your screen right now. Timo Hayden leads the German. He is new to this series. He got off like a cat in a hot thing in the first round, but he's been pegged up back the last couple of rounds. 2 weeks ago, should I say, had a very, very difficult time of things in Kota, I'm going to say. I've kind of got out of my head now. It's been such a mad 2 weeks. I look back. And then followed closely by Oscar Mangan, a man who represented Ireland with distinction at the Digital Motorsports World Cup. Didn't quite work out for him. But look, just 40 points between the top three. It means with 2 races to go, still a huge amount on the line, Lawrence.
Yeah, the top three, they need it. Tonight, they need to at least finish the top 3 of them. If we want to see the 3 of them fight for the last round, we need the 3 of them on or near the podium tonight. I have a funny feeling that we're going to get an outsider. I don't know what it is. I think we're going to get someone who's not currently in that top 3 lineup. I think they're going to win tonight. I don't know why I'm getting that feeling, but there is so much at stake tonight. I think the mistakes are going to be easy to make. It's going to be very easy to get caught behind the GT3 cars. It's all to play for.
All to play for, indeed, as we look at these standings now. Unfortunately, there seems to be big issues. I'm not seeing what everyone else is seeing. I don't know if Lawrence is seeing what everyone else is seeing, but Ada Stafikis is top of the GT3 class with Vladimir Ponomarenko there, Rob Moore, Dennis Hanley Jr., Luca Tingard, all in the top 5, separated by just 35 points. So it is very, very close indeed in this GT3 championship. Lawrence, look, it's going to be a good one today at Suzuka. It's a really iconic course as well, this track. We're just coming into qualifying there. We're starting to see some of the sector times underneath. It's set to be, look, really, really close one again. Usually we see about half a second separating the top 10. And again, we'd expect to see the same. Josh Malin and going fastest, John Kelly just in behind him, but we still have obviously the likes of Timo and the likes of Oscar Mangan to follow.
So we see where, this is Josh we're following right now. We see where he's coming into the windy section of the track. This is where it's going to count tonight. If you get stuck behind a GT3 car, or if you're a GT3 car fighting and you are trying to get out of the way of LMP cars and still fight your battle, this is where your race is going to be won and lost. If we are going to see incidents tonight, it has to be here, doesn't it, Kevin? It's one of the most difficult sections of the track. You're flat out through a lot of those. There are a lot of very, very complicated corners there. Super difficult to get it online when you're not battling. When you are battling, it's even harder. And then with traffic, multi-class traffic, it's just going to be incredibly hard for them to just navigate their way around. It's going to be very nervous, especially for the less experienced drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a track I have to say I don't know that well. It's not one I race very. I do have it. It doesn't appear very often. But it's a track I'm kind of a bit nervous of. I'm not going to lie. To be honest, I know it's an absolutely superb one. This opening section, you really have to be so accurate. Just fast flowing and really tests the aero limits of those cars. And we're looking at Timo Hayden now. He is one of the quickest guys thus far this season. He's obviously our championship leader and deserving so. But Lawrence, it hasn't gone quite all his way. He certainly has Oscar Mangan all over the back of him for this championship. And Josh Malin isn't far away either. So two very, very quick guys to have in your tail. And Oscar Mangan, of course, look, his iRacing potential knows no bounds as Josh now goes fastest again. I think he's taken 4/10 off his time with a 1:46.5.
Yeah, any one of these drivers with the slightest bit of luck can still take this championship. And on any given day, if the other people weren't in this championship, they're definitely championship contenders. We're just lucky to be able to see these people duke it out at this level, and whoever wins is really gonna, it's gonna be very difficult for the people who finish in second and third, because they came so close at the end of this season, and they've tried so hard and they've driven so well. It's just such a tricky discipline, this multi-class. As you can see there, a little bit of grass and a car can spin out so easily when you're trying to navigate the traffic and all that kind of stuff. I've driven multi-class here at this track, and it is just, I don't envy a lot of these people here tonight, especially if you're a slower car and you have one of the super fast championship contenders from LMP coming up behind you in your rearview mirror. They're going to be flashing their lights. You don't know where to go. And most of the time, the best thing you can do is just stick to your line, get through the complicated section as fast as you can, and hope that then they pass you and that they don't make a dive in that complicated section. It's going to be entertaining for sure.
5.8 kilometers, 18 corners, and two, of course, very long straights. I suppose the corner of note, as we see most happen and most overtakes, are turns 16, 17, and 18. That is the Casino Triangle, the chicane that leads down into the start finish straight. Lap record is a 1 minute 31.5 set by the Iceman Kimi Räikkönen. That was the lap record set by the Iceman Kimi Räikkönen, but I think that was eclipsed by Lewis Hamilton in 2019 with a 1:30.9. In the Mercedes, not the W12, I don't think, but the W12, of course, released on the service today. Lawrence, what do you make of that? Really good to see, I think. I say, what do you make of that? And I immediately go in with my opinion. But but it is nice to see, I suppose, look, iRacing in terms of GT categories and LMP endurance categories is really outstanding. But I think open wheel on the European side, at least if you want to call it like, not the IndyCar side, it is lacking a little bit. So the addition, we obviously had the McLaren MP430, which wasn't, I think, the GP2 engine, Fernando Alonso once called it. But this is a real piece of high quality machinery appearing on iRacing for the first time. It is great to see a company like Mercedes partner, and it is great to see a car with such incredible pedigree be able at the hands of anybody for what is it, $12, I think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a huge statement of intent by iRacing, and it kind of almost shadows a lot of the other updates that we have, the TCR updates. We've got curbs at the bus stop in Daytona. We've got so much other stuff going on that it's the updates are just coming thick and fast, and it's great to be able to rely on them, every 13 weeks or whatever it is, but a 3-month period, we get these amazing updates. And people sometimes say, well, iRacing is quite expensive and all that, but you can get such a great guaranteed experience from that. I used to not be a believer in the whole iRacing thing, but I think I'm a little bit converted.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is great. Like, it's the variety now on iRacing. You can go out and you can drive dirt oval, world, what do you call them, World of Outlaws stuff. You can go full NASCAR. I think it's the best NASCAR simulation. I don't think there's many people who would disagree there, certainly not off the back of the latest official NASCAR release. And in terms of GT racing, it ticks all those boxes. Really, open wheel racing is the only place where you don't really have that that variety of top end cars. What do you make, though, Lawrence, of that decision? Like, it's kind of very controversial. A lot of people talking about it in the community about Mercedes' decision not to allow people to put their own custom paints on the W12, and everyone kind of has to race this Mercedes. I know some people are kind of reverse engineering already, but it is a bit of a controversial decision because being able to paint your cars and run your own liveries is part of the charm of iRacing.
It is, I guess, that is their car, that is their model. There's slight difference between all the models, and it is a very high profile thing. We would rather have one Formula One car than no Formula One cars,
Mm.
especially from that era. It's, a championship pedigree car. So I think it is a huge statement of intent of what's to come. And I do think that other manufacturers are hopefully going to get on board. I don't know the legalities of it. I don't know if there's any exclusivity there or whatever, but it would be nice to, at least get a Red Bull in there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Not just have a whole lot of elite painted Red Bull W12s driving around the place with Max Verstappen's. Look at the track temp there, Lawrence. Flicking back to tonight's race, 56 degrees. Now, we're speaking to Ronan, who's the man on the cameras. He's also the man who has the final say in these sessions. And he was saying to us, like, I'll normally set these servers up to be the same. We know iRacing, obviously, certainly hot tracks as a feature, certainly of their shorter races, whatever, but their more endurance series races. But 56 degrees, it's ferociously hot. Given the fact that it's only 18 degrees air temp, it's a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, it's I don't exactly know why that is. It's a setting in the game or in the sim that you set the air temperature and it goes accordingly. So yeah, it's going to be a hot one tonight, and I'm sure that the drivers haven't exactly practiced for that. So that's going to be interesting with cold tires on lap one. We're going to see some good times going in early, but of course we're going to see those tires drop off quite quickly. So potentially some early stops. I doubt the race isn't long enough for a two-stopper, but once they kind of get, and of course once the cars start driving, it could get hotter.
Absolutely. And once they start getting racing and you start running down your tires, then that will be very, very and see how these guys can make those last. As we say, this strategy always plays into it, particularly with a such a ferociously hot track like this. It's really about picking your battles. But
we've seen some great strategy, right? This season we've seen some undercuts, we've seen incredible overcuts. They say that in a short race like this, there's not a lot of variation between the pit stop strategies, but we've seen them decide races in both GT3 and LMP class season.
Of course, Oscar Mangan, even last time round, did an amazing job at Sebring of that undercut and making it work. And we were kind of wondering what had happened to him, and all of a sudden he comes out of the pits ahead of Timo Hayden, and it was incredible. The Oscar's undercut really changed the course of the race. Oscar starting on pole again this evening for round 5 at Suzuka International Circuit. With a 146.2, that's pretty damn quick. Quick enough to see Josh Malin second by only 0.2, and then Timo back 0.4, and Jordan Kelly in 4th position with half a second behind. And it's a testament to Oscar that normally 0.5 is normally separates the top 10, whereas exactly. Now it's the top 4 or even less than the top 4. Brian McManus in 5th from VRA Racing, then Arturas Kundalis, Valentinas Marchenkovas, Peter McCann, Rory O'Shea, Harlus Yatautis, Adam Dowling, Arias Yamantis, and Tony Stack rounding out the LMP2 class. Then Aidas Skaskvikius, of course, he is our championship leader in the GT3 class and starts on pole again, followed closely by second place Vladimir Ponomarenko, then Dennis Hanley Jr., Lucas Petkovitz, Lukas Linkiewicz, and Sergei Graben, then Keith Stewart, Luca Tingard, surprisingly low down there. I wonder, did he have an issue on one of his laps, which may have slowed him down. Rob Moore, of course, a man who was very much in control of the championship up until having those issues in the last couple of races. Aidan Frenza, John McDonald, Stuart Burton, Andrew Chora Sketsky, Ben McLaughlin, Alex Vrocinak, and David Freeman in the 88 car. Those last two not setting a time. So you can see 17 seconds behind the classes. So we're almost finishing warm-up here. LD, what do you make of today's race? I'm not going to nearly for a prediction, but what can we expect early doors here at Suzuka?
So I'm going to skip past the LMP, might leave that to you. In GT3, we've seen he had a relatively slow start to the season, but he's on a hard charge. Dennis Hanley Jr., I think he's going to podium tonight. I think he could win it.
Well, that's very interesting. Dennis Hanley started third, and of course, having to get past our championship leader to do it. Aidas Stashvikius, we're still not getting his name right, but we're doing our best. He's been extremely quick this year, and it's going to take a lot to try and dethrone him.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard, because it's we see the consistency week in, week out. Tonight, there are a couple of those spanners in the works. I know, you have it at every track. You have the tricky sections. The tricky sections here are long, and we'll see throughout the race. We won't see it for the first, I'd say, 10 or 12 laps. But then as soon as the traffic starts backing up, it's really I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, me too. It's going to set to be an absolutely superb one. As Chris McCann in on the thanks to all of you for getting on the comments as well. Very much appreciate it. T1 will be fun. Indeed, it will. Double right-hander. A couple of lines you can take around there, and then try and see how brave those guys are going through the S curves 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 before they get down to the Dunlop curve. Now, rolling start as per usual in this series, apart from the time Ronan made a mess of it and we ended up having a standing start, but as it should be, a rolling start, and we're starting, of course, down the back straight. So what will be interesting to see here, Lawrence, is I suppose how much the GT3 classes back off as Josh Malin gets set off behind that Porsche 911 Carrera Cup car, I think it is. I'm terrible at my Porsche cars. Apologies to all you Porsche fans who have a much better idea of what they're looking at on the screen, the safety car. But it will be interesting to see. Obviously, that Casino Triangle is a place for overtakes, and it could potentially be where the GT3s are dumped out and they're green flagging on that chicane.
Yeah, we already see it here. Slavkovic is taking a very, very big gap there. The reason he's doing that is not necessarily because he's afraid of catching those LMPs. It's because if those LMPs have incidents, he wants as much warning as he can. He wants clear air in front of him, and he doesn't want people rejoining erratically or whatever. So he's buying as much time as he can right now, and that's the sensible thing to do, in my opinion.
It is, but it does potentially leave you open then to that green flag, as we say, on the chicane. That you just need maybe somebody, well, not that there's that many have-a-go heroes as we get towards red light, and we're going to cross the line, and Oscar off. Oscar has cleared off into the distance, and he's slightly gapping Timo Hayden. He's moving out into the right-hand side. He's giving him enough space now. The Mullingar man, who, of course, as we said, represented Ireland at the Digital-Motorsports World Cup. Timo Hayden now down into third. Josh Malin sneaking in there, and then Jordan Kelly following close behind. So Oscar, Josh, Timo, and Jordan Kelly. In the GT3 class, it's still as we were with Ada Stasveskius, Vladimir Ponomarenko, and Dennis Hanley Jr. We're looking at Dennis Hanley now as they barrel just behind the LMP2 classes down into that left-right section in the opening section of this course. Thankfully, no major incidents in the LMP2 classes, which means that nobody will be held up in the GT3 classes as they head under the bridge now for the first time up to T10 this hairpin. We've seen a few incidents into this hairpin. Late braking, it is as you're braking, as you're turning, it can encourage lockups, and I've seen some pretty poor punts in my day around here just on streams, never mind to say in race. But all of these guys keeping it clean start to the race. Lawrence and Oscar getting a reasonably good gap now, almost 5/10 on Josh Malin.
Incredibly clean. This is where the fun is going to start here. This is a super complicated corner onto this back straight here. Plenty of slipstream available here. When the cars are this bunched, you're going to get double, triple slipstream, which means that the car that's actually 3 cars back gets an incredible run. And you've got the flat out corner here to the left, and then into the chicane. We could see some desperate moves there on cold tires. Hopefully we don't. It's been remarkably clean so far.
Yeah, so somebody running very, very wide there in the back. Was that Brian McManus? I think maybe in the VRA car. Very wide there through turn 15. Bit of an issue there for Valentinas Marcinkovas as well. He's dropped down the back of the LMP2 pecking order. He had qualified a little bit higher up, but in the in the GT3 cars, it's still just a half a second between first and second in that one, between Aidas Stasvikius in the over the limit car there, the red number 4 machine, followed by Vladimir Ponomarenko in the ever mature number 69. There always has to be one. To be fair, as Aidas now takes it down into T1. This is a very, very technical circuit. You go in, and then it's that double apex, but it really encourages you to try and barrel yourself in there, and then you're almost catching it halfway through. It's a bit like the Bruxelles corner in Spa when you go down the hill. It's a bit like that, where you're kind of you can take 2 lines through, but the quicker line is kind of cutting across the first part of the corner and then coming back around for the second half.
It's 2 corners that you have to treat like one corner. You have to get that flow and that point at which you commit to the throttle and don't back off. You have to get that absolutely perfect. I'm just looking at the leaderboard there. I see some positions being exchanged there, but I'd love to see the stats on it afterwards, but I don't think we've ever actually had a lap with so few changes on the first lap as the move here from Josh Malin on Timo Hayden. Absolutely incredible move there. He came out of nowhere. He's really putting the pressure on here.
Yeah, massively. But that now is allowing, Josh in there with Timo, Josh, and obviously Jordan Kelly as well. These guys have to work together now. The VRA guys judge down around the outside. Oh, that is he's out on the Astro, but he's making it stick, and they're going now into the chicane, and Josh has the position. That is ballsy from Josh Malin, and of course, turning the championship behind Timo Hayden. Josh is saying, right, I'm taking it to you. This is the UK-German clash.
And here he comes again.
We see these guys battling at the top in the world of football, in the world of so many other things. And it looks like Timo, Josh going to hold on to it. Timo's in the background. But yeah, what a brilliant move. It looks like Josh has got the move done, LD.
What we saw there on the straight was actually, it's a thing called bump drafting. Timo went in behind Josh and actually pushed him. Then he gets the slipstream again, gets up to him and pushes him another little bit. The reason he's doing that and not overtaking is because he knows Jordan Kelly is so hot in the mix. He's trying to build that little bit of a gap between Jordan Kelly and himself, using Josh Malin, who's ahead of him, as the guinea pig for that. He is making Josh quicker, but he's still in that slipstream. That is one of the advanced tactics that we see, especially in these high aero cars that aren't that fragile.
Yeah, we're used to seeing him in Camaros and Camrys and and the like, and the Mustang, Ford Mustang in NASCAR, of course. But the flat bottom and flat back of these LMP2 cars make them absolute prime candidates for bump drafting, which means you can really hook into the person in front of you without the risk of turning them and ruining their race. So this isn't the same so much for this GT3 class. Ada Stasvikius now after being overtaken by Vladimir Podomarenko. Not sure when we get a replay on that. It'd be good to see if how Vladimir made his move past Adas, but Adas going back at him now, the number 4 car, and these two guys obviously right at the head of the championship. Very little between them. Now we're on board with Vladimir. This is going into the chicane. This is Vladimirenko round the outside of the chicane, really clean, taking the inside line and taking the lead as they go into the next lap. Of course, an hour-long race here. That LD is supreme skill.
That's the standard of driving that we're seeing here. Again, back to Josh Malin's overtake on Timo Hayden. He could have easily gone wide. He could have, and he would have gained some advantage or whatever, but the stewards might have told him, you need to give that position back or whatever. How he managed to make that corner stick while there was a car on his inside, it is if you've ever done that corner, it is absolutely flat out in these cars. When you're too wide and you've got Jordan Kelly behind you, that's a little bit scary. Unbelievable.
Yeah, massive skill. But for Oscar Mangan, he'll be happy to see this. Now there's a 2-second gap between himself and Josh Malin, and when himself and Timo battling, even Timo there going slightly. There is a little bit of aero wash in these cars. Not as much, perhaps, as you might see in Formula 1, but still can have an effect through some of those corners, particularly through the mid part of those corners. You find yourself pushed out a little bit wider than you normally would. And as we say, track temperature being so high here, 56 degrees, even though it's only 18 degrees air temp, means that those tires are really screaming. They're really struggling for grip. No problem with them getting up to temperature. As we see Rory O'Shea now tracking very closely to Harless Yatautas. This is for P8 in the LMP2 standings. Rory O'Shea, a regular competitor in the High Prix cars, did a great job in the V8 supercars last season, and once again he's now following closely. Will we see a Josh Malin-esque move from Rory here? He goes down the inside instead, but down the inside of Harless. He's after punching him out, but he just doesn't have track position. Harless is able to keep that racing line as keeps the throttle pinned to the floor and holds on to P8. But Lawrence,
he's behind him again. He's going to do the switch.
He is going to do the switch. Great exit. Oh, and Rory and Harless on the grass there, and that forces him out. Roy O'Shea gets ahead, and now that opens the door for Adam Dowling as well, potentially to take advantage there.
Yeah, he goes defensive here, so Adam has to go around the outside, but I think Adam might have the pace here. No, he doesn't. Backing off slightly. Good discipline driving there. Good defense, all things considered. A slight mistake when he knew that that Rory O'Shea had the better of him going into that last corner. That cost him dearly. Hopefully he can make up that time again. And they're a good bit behind Peter McCann now, who's doing well up in P7 as well.
Ronan almost has my, you can read my thoughts sometimes. I seriously worry about what that, my eyes flickered to the timing tree. And that's a mistake! That's a mistake from Ponomarenko on exit. That allows Daskovicius now to take the lead, and Ronan is ahead of it. I was just going to say, I was looking at the timing tables and saying there's only about 2/10. We should go back to the action there. But Anis Daskovicius now, that once again we see in those 911s, rear wheel drive, those guys, you have to be very, very careful on the throttle, very, very patient. And Vladimir Ponomarenko just a little over eager on the exit there of turn 17. And Anis Daskovicius says, thank you very much, I'll take that.
Yeah, when you see a car in front of you like Daskovicius or Ponomarenko, who, when they're driving perfectly, it's almost impossible to think how you might get past them. When you see those people starting to make mistakes, that gives people confidence. They've both seen each other make mistakes now. Both of them are out for blood. And that is exactly what we want to see here. We want to see more of that racing. We want to see those mistakes being forced.
Absolutely, because that's the thing. It's very easy. Well, I wouldn't say it's very. It's not easy to cars the best of times, but it's easier to be more consistent when you're ambling around, you're hot lapping, there's nobody in your mirror. But when you've somebody going left and right and you're having to keep a half an eye on your mirror whilst also trying to keep your line, it is very difficult. As we see now a move, speaking of mirrors here, as Arias Yamantis going down for the inside of Adam Dowling. This is a move that Adam was trying to force around the outside in the last lap, having been bunched up by that mistake by Haraldus Hitautas, and that allows Arias Yamantis now to go into 10th position ahead of Adam Dowling. Adam Dowling, unfortunately, the real loser in all of that.
Yeah, unfortunate for him now. He's Jordan Kelly off. He was running in P4, I think, was he? I wonder what happened there. I think we only just caught the end of that. That's unfortunate.
Oh, that's it. Must be careful with the rejoin here that he doesn't take out Rory O'Shea, and he out is behind him. He's joined back in. We're just going to watch it here. Arias, we're looking at Arias, now Jordan Kelly. Now we're looking at Jordan Kelly's behind Rory O'Shea here. This looks like it's live again, is it?
Yes.
We're after missing what's going on here. Rory goes down Jordan Kelly goes down the inside of Rory O'Shea. Rory, I think, gave him that, really knowing that Jordan is the faster car. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. I'm sure Ronan is all over the back of it here, trying to see. We'll look at what's going on at the moment anyway, as Rory O'Shea now tries a mount a challenge on. Oh, we do have the replay here now. This is Brian McManus. Oh, you just see Jordan Kelly just lost it on the exit.
Oh, and you know, Jordan is one of our most consistent drivers. He's right up there in P5, I think, in the championship at the moment. And to see someone like him spinning out at this stage of the race, lap 6, he never spins out on a good day. The track temperatures might be getting the better of him.
Yeah, man, a few words, but I'd say a man of a few choice words after that incident. It's so easy to do, though, Lawrence, really, as now Brian McManus has Arturos Cadelas all over the back of him. This is for P4, and yes, Brian is battling now with Arturos. Arturos on the outside, Brian squeezing him out and squeezing him too hard. I think that's on Brian McManus. He sent Arturos into the barriers. I expect to see a penalty for Brian after that.
There was a slight contact. It's always hard to tell from our camera angles because it's very, very easy for us to judge. We don't know exactly how that coming together, how that actually came about. I feel horrible for him there. Brian was going to go defensive anyway. Maybe he just didn't give him enough room there and was expecting him to back off from the outside position. But I mean, he was never going to back off, right?
Yeah, well, look, Brian, a very clean driver and has been very clean all through these championships, but I still think on first viewing just did not give enough space. It's fine to squeeze a driver in one way, but it's another thing squeezing him out onto the grass into the braking zone. You have to allow a guy some space when he's trying to overtake you. Now, I don't know if he hasn't given it back. No, Brian's still running P4, so it'll be interesting to see what the stewards have to say about that, because from my point of view, I thought Arias had enough space alongside him to allow him to have a little bit of the road. It's not like he was on the back corner as he was trying to stick a nose in there. He very much was side by side, as we see now. Luca Tingard going, having to defend against Rob Moore. Rob Moore now down the inside, and he's taking P4.
Oof. Rob Moore, of course, has a point to prove still because he has been doing very well this championship. Look at that gang of cars. This is going to be incredible going into turn 1 here. They're going to be 2 wide, if not 3 wide at some stage. Massive dive there from Tingard. Oof, and he's gone a little bit wide, leaving himself open now for Keith Stewart behind him and in Frizina. All action.
Yeah, all action. It's just one of those things that you make one mistake and then it gets in your head and you make another mistake and it once falls off to the other. Now we're looking at Peter McCann and Brian McManus. Peter McCann going for a move down the inside of Brian McManus. That was really clever from Peter McCann. From Jordan Kelly, should I say, on Peter McCann. My apologies. Really clever from Jordan Kelly. And now I presume that Brian is going to leave him through because Jordan's still with an outside chance of winning the championship. But when you look at that GT3 car ahead, Jordan just using that, basically pinning Peter McCann to the outside, not giving him any room, and then just gliding down the inside. So this is where you see the traffic management now. Here's Rory O'Shea, the high pre, number 88 machine. He's all over the back of Peter McCann. Peter, who left Jordan Kelly through. Oh, this very close there. Look how close Peter McCann left rear tyre trailing on that grass. They are all over here now, and Peter's going to be held up slightly by Jordan Kelly, which means they're all going to be bunched up. This is a really, really interesting battle. This is a battle, of course, for 5th position, and really hotting up here, LD.
Oh man, this is where the crack starts in these races. As soon as you start having to manage that traffic, we've seen it before. Of course, Jordan Kelly, Peter McCann, both VRA drivers, they're in voice chat together right now. So Jordan, if he is backed up by GT3 cars, he's going to be saying, Peter, hold up the cars behind. Don't let them get at me. You know, this is important for me. A slight slide there. We saw a slight wobble. Don't think it affected him too much. And again, he has his teammate, Peter McCann, to defend him slightly. But Peter is now under pressure. Maybe we can get that angle. Rory O'Shea is coming right up on Peter by the looks of the timings. And he could try to do him going into the chicane here. Now, Peter McCann, excellent defensive driver, very disciplined. So I think he's going to keep the head here. Rory O'Shea, again, smells blood. He's going to go for it again here. Peter McCann is not out of the woods.
No, 100% not. As Rob Moore now, there's an issue with him. Rob Moore seems to have had an accident, I think. Rory O'Shea now going down for a move down the inside. McCann is going to try and think they're too wide going into T1. Who is going to be able to get the exit here? Rory O'Shea has the outside. Now Peter McCann back on the inside. With Rory Stiggs still with him. Now he has the inside as they go left and right through this opening section. And they're just trading the inside line, but they're staying with each other and there's contact. And Rory O'Shea is off. Oh, that's just a pity. That is just rubbing his racing. That looked to me like a racing incident. Hard to see it again, but looked like just two guys going at a hammer and tongs.
Was there contact? I'm not sure if there actually was. Oh, there was a slight bit of contact there. And as soon as you get off that racing line, you're onto those marbles. And it's very hard to keep the car on the track. Rory did a great job of not taking out other cars. It did cost him in the end, getting back onto the track. But yeah, that's unfortunate. It was great racing up to that point.
Yeah, there's a GT3. That's Rob Moore. That's what sent Rob Moore down the back. That could be huge. Bitch of standings. Rob Moore, of course, going into this evening in third position. Yeah. P3 just 25 points off Aida Staskevicius, so just 6 points off Vladimir Ponomarenko. But that move could massively put him back. Now he's back in third position, I think. No, sorry, that's Dennis Hanley Jr., should I say. Rob Moore's way down the standings now, which means that Vladimir could open up that. And he's just taken P1. Dennis Hanley now getting ahead of Aida Staskevicius, who's gone wide through the grass. We're looking at him there, and there's Timo Hayden going past, but that's Aida Staskevicius, our championship leader, going off at the casino triangle, and he's now into third position.
Oh my God, we just don't know where to look at the moment. Poor Ronan. He got turned.
He got turned by Vladimir Ponomarenko.
Oh, that's a bad one. That's a bad one. That could have implications all throughout the grid. And Robert Moore, I mean, that's probably the best thing that could happen to him. But that's not how we want to see it happen.
No, certainly not. And to be fair, what we've seen kind of in this season thus far, certainly at Kota, was guys giving back position. So you would hope that Vladimir Ponomarenko might allow him back inside as Timo takes that wide line. He is track because he has Brian McManus all over his chuff. Brian, the earlier incident, Chris McCann, sorry, of course, Peter's racing. He wouldn't be able to comment in the YouTube section. Chris McCann saying, what else would you expect from a lad from Westmeath? That is harsh on the people from Westmeath. Good solid Midlands people. I don't think they'll stand for that. We'll have Brian Malooly calling to your house. Kieran Malooly calling to your house now. But yeah, a huge amount of incident. I would hope, however, that Aida Staskevicius and Vladimir Ponomarenko could be sorted out, because I think we didn't fully see it, but it looked like Vladimir turned.
Definitely. So, like, this is the interesting. Tony Stack is up in third place there. See? Oh, sorry, he's in the LMPs. Just saw the position change. Yes.
Ah,
So this plays into Dennis Hanley Jr.'s hands now because he's in P2. If Ponomarenko does give that position back, he's going to have to hand Dennis Hanley Jr. the lead. Also interesting, in LMP now, we've got Brian McManus all over Timo Hayden. I'm not sure if we can see that angle here. Every race so far this season, we've seen Timo Hayden get the better of Brian McManus. Brian McManus has obviously been putting in the pressure. He's going to pile it on here going into turn one. I'm not sure if Timo Hayden is carrying some damage or if Brian is just on a mission right now. Brian is going to take that position, whether it's going to be a clean overtake or Hayden is going to make a mistake potentially with the pressure that Brian is putting on. This is incredible to see. Brian has a potential podium on his hands.
absolutely. And in the context of the championship, Timo Hayden obviously leading the championship by 29 points from Oscar Mangan. He's 39 points ahead of Josh Malin. But those two guys are in P1 and P2, and Timo now is in P3, potentially battling off P4. So in terms of the overall championship picture, this could make a massive swing. We could see potentially Oscar take control of this LMP2 as we head into the last round next week. LD, want to just look back a little bit while we have a chance to take a breath here. It doesn't look like there's any massively close battles. We'll keep an eye, however, on the Brian McManus and Jordan Kelly battle. What a weekend we had 2 weekends ago. Just first of all, I'd like to say to everyone who was in on the chat, both people who are fans of yourself or people who are fans of Digital Motorsport, the comments, I've never, you see somebody rejoining there, a GT3 car. I thought that might have been Dennis Hanley Jr. It was a black livery, but maybe not. Just to see the positivity. I've never seen such positivity in a YouTube chat my whole life as we see Tony Stack lose it, and I think that's Arias Semantis having to be a little bit patient there to get past him. Just a massive thanks. I mean, what a weekend, Lawrence. It was really an exceptional exhibition of Digital Motorsports and what we have here.
Oh, definitely. Like we were trying to sell it because we knew we had seen photos, we had seen the plans, we had seen what was going to happen. Trying to sell that vision to people is a little bit difficult because they've seen esports events before. I think that a lot of people realized that the level that it was at. It's almost like people told me no matter how hard I sold it, I undersold it, because they couldn't believe how professional the production was. They weren't expecting fireworks and a real studio and really quick drivers in studio. They weren't expecting the level of action that they got with the drama and everything. It was just you were there, I was there. It wasn't just the people who were on camera. There must have been 25 to 30 staff floating around the place.
Yeah, huge. I mean, we were very lucky to be those around, largely applauds us, but afterwards I went around to each individual floor staff and thank you so much. It was Frenzy in Poland were the guys who set it up, part of the Poltat gaming studios out on the outskirts of Warsaw. And yeah, it's funny because we see, and look, there's nothing wrong with it, but oftentimes it's Zoom calls, it's virtual backgrounds, it is what it can be in its best that it can be, but it's not the same as what you see for the real world events. It's not the same level of production. It's not a live studio. It's not an analyst desk. It's not a presenter. It's not to the same level. Whereas, obviously, I think what we have here in terms of what we have in terms of the quality of this stream and the commentary, I think, and the presentation and the relationship that we have with the drivers is very much, we treat this as if it was a real racing event. But for the guys in Frenzy and for Bryn and for Anna and for all the people who are involved to take on what we see every day and give it that same seriousness and put it on that platform really shows that I think we're in the right direction.
Peter McCann in trouble here. Sorry for interrupting you there. Arias Yomantis overtaking Peter McCann, got an incredible run on him there. That's going to be very hard for Peter McCann to catch up. He's probably not going to get this slipstream here. Great burst of energy from Yomantis there.
Yeah, and Peter just struggling a little bit. It's been an up and down race for a lot of the VRA guys, to be fair, but Josh Malin hanging in there in second place. They'll be hoping that he can really make him out for the championship. But yeah, I mean, Lawrence, just I suppose to wrap up on it, just thanks to everyone who watched, and I think it just goes to show you, hopefully next year, to say that the last production was our first is to say that the potential for this thing is huge. And with the backing of ESE and with the backing of some of our sponsors like Fanatec and Cube Controls and all these amazing people, the potential for this thing is absolutely enormous. And I really, really, really hope we'll be on a flight somewhere next year, somewhere maybe even more exotic than Warsaw, for the opportunity to really live out our passion and show it to the world.
Yeah, when it gets to that level, you know, you're going to attract more people. We did have amazing drivers there, but one thing that has been said to me is, you know, some of people's favorite drivers weren't there, and they didn't do the qualifying and all that kind of stuff. And this just sets the benchmark. We did get well-known sim racers. As Brian McMahon absolutely throws it into the chicane there. He lost a little bit of time, sorry, but he's trying hard. Timo Hayden, that's the first pit stop.
Timo into the pits, yeah, first pit stop. Oh, was there a bit of contact with the wall there?
I think he might have made contact, yeah.
Yeah, as he was braking to get down. It'll be interesting to see if there's any damage taken there. We'll just have a look. He's into the pits now, Timo Hayden, in the Impulse number 96, and hard on the brakes, and that is about as close to the pit wall as you'll ever want to be. Timo in, getting that undercut.
And he wants to shed that speed there, because the last thing you want is, you know, potential lock up into the wall plus a black flag, which gives you a drive through, or you know, you have to hold in your pit box. So I think he got the speed down in time. Let's see if that pays off for him. We see Peter McCann in the pits as well. We can see it on the graphic on the left hand side. We're going to see people pitting now. This is going to get interesting for sure. I'm not sure if they're going for new tires and fuel. Usually they stay on the one set of tires. I wonder, are they going to go for... I haven't actually driven this layout in this temperature, so I wonder if they're actually going to go for tires as well.
I doubt it, to be honest, but if they do, fair play to them. I mean, it's a 2-minute lap. How much time you're going to lose per lap, I suppose, depends on how much you can. Well, it depends on how well you can manage those tires. But I would be surprised if any of these guys go for tires. You're talking about a 30-second difference in taking tires as to not taking tires, in and around there, depending on the iRacing setup. I think it's around 30 seconds. I'm open to correction on that. However, it certainly feels like a long time when you're sitting there. And with about a 2-minute lap, you're talking with a half an hour on the clock, you're talking 15 seconds. You have to be at least 2 or 3 seconds a lap slower to make it worthwhile. As Vladimir Ponomarenko now goes for a move. That's a lap car. He's overtaking there, so he's slotting in behind Sergei Grabin, and he's quite a bit of a gap. But interested to see whether race control will do something about that incident with himself and Aidas Taskvikius. I imagine Aidas has been very, very clean with some great racing between those two. I was disappointed to see Vladimir not give that position back, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. You never know. Like, sometimes when there's doubt, you just need to leave it up to race control. The last thing you want to do is, give back a position that you didn't necessarily need to give back. This is racing after all, so people aren't going to be. People aren't going to be, too generous. Incidents do happen. Sometimes you benefit, sometimes you lose out. But yeah, generally it's best to leave that up to race control.
Yeah, Peter McCann, jeez, I keep saying Peter McCann. I'm so used to commentating on it. Chris coming in on the YouTube comments again saying, look, it really won't be worth that much time to you. You lose time taking tires, because they can do 2 hours on one set, but the track temp is so high. It would be really interesting to see how that affects degradation and whether those guys say it. Ronan was saying in some of the rumors ahead of time was that they were going to take tires, but will be interested to see. I suppose we just have to see the pit stops and see how long they are. Oscar back out, and Timo down in 9th place now. He is 22 seconds back from Valentinas Marcinkova, so a pretty hefty pit stop to say that he's that far behind. Obviously, he was the first to take fuel, so interested to see whether Timo's on a new set of slicks or whether he's decided to stay with what he has. 26 minutes into the race, LD.
It's going to be super interesting to see where Oscar and Josh go for their pit stops. Same for the top 3 in GT3. They're only about 4 seconds apart, and we know what an impact it has had in the past. So that is where our eyes should be right now. We're any minute, we're approaching the halfway stage of the race. Any minute we're going to see them starting to pull into the pits. The interesting thing is going to be the difference. Who does pit, who doesn't pit, and then we'll be able to see afterwards who actually benefited. Right now, I don't know. Some of these drivers will be gambling and they'll be trying their best to do that overcut or undercut that we were talking about.
And largely, LD, that's based on traffic, right? I mean, it's not just like a Formula One race where you're all relatively the same class. Now, I know the difference between a Mercedes and a Haas, you might say, there's just two different classes, but largely you would say that, they're the same class. So it's not so much dependent on track position, more on how quick your tires are going, how quick you feel like you can go, whether you can push for that undercut or overcut or whatever. Whereas this is largely based on traffic. Like if you're in a position now where, okay, Timo might have gone into the pits, but you have, you might have 2 or 3 GT3 cars in front of you, and other than that, you have huge amount of space. Look at Josh Main. Look at the amount of space he has in front of him. Like, Josh doesn't really want to pit at this point because he's thinking to himself, okay, if I pit, I might be spat out into a load of GT3 traffic, and it mightn't be much good for me. Watch now, he'll pit as we're looking at him. But usually, you would expect a situation like that to stay out because you have that track in front of you, and you think, okay, I'm not going to lose that much time now in the next lap. I'm going to try and push as much as I can, and then when I start getting close to that GT3 pack, then I'll pit, which will give me back that space again to go at it once again. So it's really about creating space for yourself on the track, isn't it?
Exactly. Like the textbook undercut is when you're behind a car in your own class who's slowing you down. At that point, you know that it's going to take a lot of work to get past them. You need a pit stop anyway. You may as well take that pit stop early and hope for the best. Now, obviously not too early in the race, but that's the typical undercut. Then when you have clear air, like we saw Josh Malin had clear air in front of him there, he's going to go because every single lap, his fuel tank is getting lighter and lighter and lighter. So he's going to go for as long as he can and hope that he gets that overcut that we saw Oscar Mangan do so successfully earlier on in the season.
It's a bit of a stale one for Josh. He's in a bit of a strange position now because 5 seconds between himself and Oscar Mangan, and you just look at the timing trees down the bottom of the splits. He wasn't making a huge amount. I think maybe making 2/10 or a tenth a lap up on Oscar every lap, and with only about 16 laps left of this race, it would take a huge amount to add all those up and try and make 5 seconds. It just doesn't add up. But you look at Brian McManus. Brian's making 7/10, 4/10, 8/10, 1.9.
Yeah.
And that's, again, is traffic, which is a huge part to play in it. Brian is 13 seconds behind, but with the speed that Brian's carrying, he could very well end up catching Josh Main, particularly if he's a good pit stop. So.
Definitely, and VRA have a predicament now because Jordan Kelly is right behind Brian McManus. Do they work together? Do they battle? We don't know from VRA because they don't take their team orders too strictly. Usually they say, let's race. We're here to race. We're going to race.
Oh, Jordan hopping in and out. I can't see what GT3 car that was, but he stayed right. Jordan thought he was going to go left. He kind of got a bit mixed up, and then the GT3 car to shoot back across the track because he thought Jordan was going to just go straight through him. That's kind of one of those clear ones where it's a bit of miscommunication between the two classes.
Yeah, surprisingly little time lost there. Maybe the contact was only small. I'm not sure which GT3 car that was. There's a car off in the background as well after having a slight impact with the wall. Absolutely, I don't know what way they're going to go. Arias Yomantis again with the charge. He is charging his way up this leaderboard.
Yeah, that was Arturas Kundalis in the background hitting the barrier on the final corner to the home straight. Not sure exactly what happened there, but these two guys jockeying it out. Arias Yomantis and Haraldas Jutaudis, the two Lithuanians, giving it hammer and tongs here at the IDMC. And these guys, there's a group of guys who are coming over from Lithuania. And again, of course, Aidas Tasfikis is the same. They add a massive amount to this championship, and it's always brilliant to see the international flavour as that same GT3 car now gets caught up in more LMP2 madness. But they bring a huge amount to this championship, and we say it all the time, more and more of an international flavour. We saw it with the World Cup, some of the best drivers in the world bringing some really good racing, but the standard in the IDMC is so high. Now Oscar, of course, leading by 5.5 at the moment, but he was one of the top 30 qualifiers in the World Cup, and he's a guy who is really struggling to try and nail down first position at the top of this championship.
Yeah, I mean, that was I actually wasn't expecting him to still do so well. As Luca Thingard with coming around again, one of our championship contenders, feeling his tires. He's going to pit for sure. He's going to have to pit here because those tires take a while to start behaving themselves again. He's due a pit stop. he wouldn't have wanted that spin. That was a costly one.
Yeah, it is, and it's not just costly, as you say, LD, and the fact that he loses time, but also the iRacing tyre model makes those tyres extremely hot, as we see now. Arias, that is going to lose him a little bit of time. It doesn't lose you a massive amount, but every little bit counts. And if you're stuck behind your GT3 coming into the pits, and particularly coming out of the pits, you can't get the foot down and get that acceleration that you want. Now we're looking at Jordan Kelly all over the back of Brian McManus, and as you say, looks like team orders are gone out the window, or looks like team orders aren't a part of this. It looks like these two are going to race it out, duke it out here for third position. Interesting, because of course Jordan is still in with a shout of winning that championship. You would think there might be team orders for Brian to let Jordan go past, and Jordan's certainly quicker in most laps, as we saw in that graphic earlier, but Brian's up 2 positions and he doesn't want to leave him go.
Yeah, I think Jordan cares about, podium or bust. I'm not sure if he has a chance of podium right now, so I think he's going to be saying to Brian, let's pretend we're racing for the win here. And I think that they're going to push each other extremely hard, because we tend to get great entertainment from the team racing that we see in this championship, especially with some of the larger teams who, they want to practice as much as they want to win. They want to prepare for that world stage. Now, obviously, if one of them was in contention as we see Jordan Kelly take the slipstream from the GT3, and look at that for a cutback. That is exceptional driving from Jordan. He used the GT3, get ahead, got the run on Brian McManus. He's going to go around the outside now on Brian, and Brian backed off slightly. He didn't want any of that. Jordan Kelly got the position. Very disciplined driving there, and they gave us the entertainment that we want.
Yeah, that gave me the heebie-jeebies, because Jordan is up in the wee County Donegal, where of course Storm Barra has been kind of lauding it today, and Jordan's internet at the best times could be a bit sketchy up there in those parts. It's not quite fiber optic brilliant broadband that some of us might be lucky enough to benefit from, so he's kind of flashing on and off. And when you see a car flashing, you can't, they're flashing, but they can appear at any moment as to where they are on track, so you never know how much space you have, particularly going too wide through a corner like that. I think Brian, with the sensible move just to back off and leave Jordan go through, because when you have a flashing car and very close racing, that can often spell disaster. As we're back with Vladimir Ponomarenko, a 4.6 second advantage. Just to let people know that race control, the decisions will be made not posthumously, that means to say that everyone's going to die before they happen. They will be made post-race. So we'll find out the results of them afterwards, but I imagine that Vladimir is just gonna Adam getting a back wheel caught there in the Astro and going flying. But yeah, it is an interesting dynamic, LD, because it means that Vladimir obviously is in P1, striving to make as much space as he can, but with the penalties being given post-race, he still doesn't know yet how much that incident with Ida Stashvicius will cost him.
Definitely. Like we saw Adam go around there, he's actually P7 in the championship, and between him and P5, which is Jordan Kelly, there are only, I think, the bones of 10 points or something like that. Peter McCann is in the mix there as well, so he won't be happy with how he's doing right now. He won't get the points haul that he wants, and Jordan Kelly and Brian McManus are probably going to open up that gap. We still see Brian McManus hot on the heels of Jordan Kelly, so that is definitely one to watch. So because they're obviously, just looking at the championship points there, they're also battling for that P5 spot. So Brian isn't out of this yet, and hopefully, Jordan's internet kind of behaves a little bit, and they can start duking it out again. As we see, in the gaps are kind of opening up in the GT3 class now. I'm not actually sure how many pit stops they've done. As you see, Marcin Kovas coming into the pits here. He's sitting in P7 at the moment, but he's got a nice gap to Timo Hayden behind him. But Timo Hayden, of course, already has his pit stop done. It's a surprisingly high gap, actually, for Timo. I know he's done a pit stop, but the top 6 still haven't done their pit stops, Kevin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'd like to see Oscar next time he comes around, because I would expect Oscar Mangan to be heading into the pits at the end of this lap. 36 minutes is pushing it in these LMP2 cars in terms of fuel. Now, unfortunately, the iRacing service doesn't let you see the dashboard, or lets you see the dashboard, but it does block out certain statistics, so we can see 0 on the fuel gauge. It would be nice to see what that fuel gauge is showing, because I imagine it's flashing yellow with low fuel. So Oscar now heading into the final chicane. I would be shocked if Oscar doesn't pull into the pits here, and Josh follows him in. He's been held up there slightly by a GT3 car, and there he goes, dives into the pits. Oscar into the pits. And I would expect to see Josh Malin and Jordan Kelly and Brian McManus follow. They're all without a stop thus far in this race. And that
Here
would
we
be
go.
interesting to see how much of a gap can Timo Hayden make up. 29 seconds now, the gap between himself and Oscar Mangan. Just watch that start to tumble and expect to see Timo potentially battle these guys right up the top once again.
Do any of the other cars have the fuel to stay out on track? Probably not. They've pushed it late. We're 37, 38 minutes into this race. The battle right now is a stationary one in the pits, and it's going to be just super interesting to see if anybody gains from this, as we see the VRA guys coming in there as well.
Yeah, the VRA guys dropping in. Oscar's back out. Can't see Timo Hayden.
Ooh, Josh is close to him.
Josh is much closer. It was a 4.5 second interval, about 5 seconds. Now it's down to 3 seconds. Timo Hayden, as we see, is only going into the final chicane. So Timo, well out of the picture here with 20 minutes to go. LD, this shakes the whole thing up once again at the top in the LMP2 class as we head into the final round.
The fact that Timo is so far down the grid is really going to level this thing up at the top. At the moment, I think, what are they, 29 points adrift between P1 and 2. So that's going to really pull it together a little bit as we see him go up into P5 there as a result of other people's pit stops. A little bit of changing around there, but yeah, very, very interesting. The gaps are all relatively similar, except for Josh. He did gain a little bit, but we know Oscar ultimately has the pace on him at the moment. So we could see that gap potentially opening up again unless Josh has an absolutely amazing last third of this race.
Yeah, it's going to take really something for Josh, or potentially a mistake from Oscar Mangan to get Josh back into this. And that would mean that Oscar would open up that advantage on Josh Malin and also potentially go into the lead. But I would expect to see Josh and Timo and Oscar all within jabbing distance of each other as we head to the final round at Le Mans, of course. That is kind of the breeding ground of these cars. We had to bring it back to Le Mans. But LD, what's going to make it even more interesting is that we're going to be racing at night.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be absolutely incredible. It's a spectacle of epic proportions. If you've ever seen multi-class at Le Mans, I expect an incredible attendance, and a lot of people who are used to this multi-class racing, that is probably their home track. So some people will have, some home advantage because they've done so many laps there. They've done 12-hour events, 24-hour events, and they've often done those, back-to-back weekends apart. We're going to cut to some ad breaks there to just give a shout out to our sponsors.
They say that perfection doesn't exist in this game. Most players just don't have it in them. But those who dare to seek it might catch excellence. And that sounds perfect to me. So, I'm done playing. Let's drive.
Are you looking to get involved in sim racing or to upgrade your existing sim equipment? Digital-Motorsports.com are the world's leading one-stop sim racing shop. We stock everything from wheels, pedals, PCs, cockpits, right through to fully built custom turnkey sim solutions built to meet your specific requirements. We're official distributors for the best brands including SimLab, Fanatec, Thrustmaster, Cube Controls, Husingveld, SimiCube, SimTag, Next Level Racing, Grid Engineering and many more. We offer fast, reliable worldwide shipping via DHL, and we also run some of the most competitive online racing leagues in the world. Check out digitalmotorsports.com today.
Just looking at that incredible hardware makes me dream about what Santa's going to bring me. Sorry for interrupting you there, Kevin.
Yeah, I know. Well, look, Digital Motorsports is the place to get it. And thanks very much as well to our partners, ESC. It's absolutely brilliant to meet some of them, some of those guys over in Warsaw, and really backing us to the T here at Digital Motorsports and believing what we do, and SimiCube as well. Now, Lawrence, I want to give a shout out while we're talking about sim racing gear to my Wildfire Racing team, to Calvin and to George and to Bader and to Brad and to Sled and to all the guys involved in the team. As you know, I'm a bit of a poverty sim racer in that I was still up until this afternoon racing on a G29, a Logitech, which is absolutely nothing wrong with it. Plenty of people around the world using it, but the potentiometer pedals are, they're makes it a little bit more difficult, harder to be more consistent. Anybody who needs to know the difference can go to Lawrence's YouTube channel and find out exactly what makes a great pedal a great pedal. But those guys were so good to pick up as a present for myself and as a kind of a thank you for the work that I've done with the team, whatever work it has been. They picked me up a set of Trustmaster TLCM pedals, which arrived in the box today. I was promised a t-shirt. I had a guy from Amazon turn up with this massive box. I told him a t-shirt and he said, well, that's one big t-shirt, but enjoy the present. So yeah, Trustmaster TLCM pedals, you can get them at Digital Motorsport for just over €200, or even better, if you have outstanding teammates and great friends, then they might go there and do it for you if you're lucky, if you're as lucky as I am. But thanks so much to the Wildfire guys, and of course do check out Digital Motorsports for any of your gear. Obviously Christmas, we're getting a bit late for the Christmas orders, but even coming up to Christmas, or indeed after Christmas, if you want to get somebody special that little bit of sim racing gear in their life, then do head away to digitalmotorsports.com. Superb guys. I've been up there myself. I got to visit the HQ on my way up with Ronan to Warsaw, and it was really great to see people who are really passionate about sim racing and trying to do their best. They have great support, and a new person on board as well with them, who a Waterford woman, whose name I'm after, Laura, who is a book of her own on racing for girls, Laura. So she's joined the team recently, and a really great group there based in Rathcoole. So yeah, do check them out. Check out the website. There's plenty on there for all budgets.
Yeah, they're a great bunch as well. I'll just, for those people on the stream who maybe don't know what the difference is between load cell or whatever, it's just a different type of way of measuring how much your foot is pressing the brake. In the same way in a real car, the distance that your foot travels doesn't necessarily determine how hard the car brakes, whereas on a basic pedal set, an entry-level pedal set, the further your foot travels, the more you'll brake. Now, as we see the GT3 cars here in the pits, Staskevicius and Dennis Handy Jr., who's at Ponomarenko, is at the start, yes, and pit exit. They're all very close.
Very close. Staskevicius has made a big change. He's quite close now. He's picked that up. He's 4 seconds now off Dennis Handy Jr., who's 4 seconds off Vladimir Ponomarenko, and a huge gap then down to Linus Petvicius. But yeah, as you say, Lawrence, like you were kind of explaining the technicality of it, but really with a potentiometer pedal, it's kind of based on muscle memory. So it's about how far you could push your foot away from you and making sure that you can kind of do that every time. But with a load cell, it kind of comes down to feel. It's much more like driving a real car, in that you get feedback from the pressure that comes back to your foot, as opposed to it just making sure that you kind of replicate the same movement over and over. It just makes it a lot more satisfying.
So with the potentiometer, yeah, your memory, so your actual brain is remembering how far you need to push that pedal. Whereas with the load cell, that's where your muscle memory and that intuition that you're talking about, that feel, kicks in. With a load cell, it's just a different way of measuring, but it also gives a different resistance on your foot. For the first couple of races, you're probably going to feel like as we see a replay here of Peter McCann and Aris Yomantis, is it?
I think
yes, it is.
Aris
They're
Yomantis
right on top of each other here. Aris Yomantis was on an impressive charge anyway. I don't know if he's made a couple of mistakes that he's lost the positions that he's worked so hard to gain a couple of times, but a really exciting driving from him. He's getting loads of airtime considering where he is. He's really close to the other cars, really giving the fans what they want.
Yeah, there's some great battles right up and down the field, and that's the thing. As we pushed wide there, managing to hold on to it by Arias. That's the thing, like we talk about obviously the guys at the top, the Oscar Mangans, the Josh Malins, the Jordan Kellys, the Timo Haydens, but there's great battling right up and down this grid. And the great thing about the IDMC Championship, if you are quick enough, certainly for us, I say us, I don't include you in this, Lawrence, you're a lot faster than I am. As Timo loses it there on the hairpin, and he's having a shocker. This is another bad one from Timo.
Austin Powers. Here we go.
It's not that far away looking from what Austin Powers was driving, to be fair.
Not bad. And who's that coming up behind him? Rory O'Shea, is it? No, it's where are we? Harald Tautas. Now we'll see that Timo Hayden, the championship leader, or no, he's not the leader. Sorry,
He
is
is.
he? Sorry, yes,
He
he
was
is.
coming in. He's not going to
Yeah.
be anymore, though. Not after all this.
Not like this, no. So he's going to, again, smell blood. That seems to be the theme for tonight. If we had a word cloud for the commentary, we would have smelling blood in there, because people are all of a sudden seeing that, they do have these opportunities. They are racing with aliens, but they themselves are also aliens.
And that's the thing. And like, as with any league, Florence said, great races that you host, you'll always find somebody who's around your battle, and sometimes a battle for P9 or P10 is just as exciting or even more exciting than a battle for P3, where you somebody makes a mistake and you end up cruising the last 3 laps. A really hard class battle, as we see. This is for 7th position, but these guys aren't giving an inch, as now Peter McCann's forced to back off there, the GT3 car, and that allows Arias to try and put a pressure on him. But it just goes to show you the battling here right up and down the grid is absolutely superb. Even though we don't have that battle up the front that I think we were hoping for, it's great to see, all the way through this race, guys going on a hammer and tongue.
Yeah, like Josh is closing that gap. He's under 3 seconds now, but with 11 minutes to go, probably about 12 or 13 minutes of race time left. It would take a mistake from Oscar Mangan to, or maybe some unfortunate traffic to invite Josh back in. But catching him is one thing. Passing out Oscar Mangan, you can see the distance between them there now. It could be interesting. We know Josh is a hard charger. Like, he does not care that this is P1. He wants the position in front of him at all times. That's his mindset. It just so happens that he always finishes up on the pointy end.
Yeah, there's a reason for it as well, Josh. Quickest at a Porsche experience day the other day. He was doing it on the sim, and he was the quickest in that as well. So he is extremely quick in the virtual world, as he is on real track. So 3.1 seconds, that's going to be a huge ask ahead of Oscar Mangan, and somebody who's so consistent as Oscar as well. But it can happen. Things do happen. As what is it, Murray Walker's famous phrase, things can and often do. I can't remember, it's gone in my head.
Here we go. This is an exciting pack that we're looking at here. Jumantas with the incredible charge. Peter McCann right up against that pit wall, not allowing as much slipstream, but look at that for a dive up the inside. I'm actually surprised that Marcin Kovas wasn't involved in that. He must have had a little bit of an issue, but he was right with them going into that last chicane. Peter McCann has a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, a lot of work to do. This is going to be defensive, mega defensive driving. And you'd imagine if we were 10 minutes into this race, Peter might say, okay, off you go. Go on ahead and I'll follow you and see if we can make a gap. But with 10 minutes left, Peter McCann is hammering, like fighting tooth and nail for this, which will obviously play into Harald Tautas' hands as well. Again, that GT3 traffic, he goes right up the inside. Look at the distance gained there through traffic. Peter McCann slightly held up on the race line. Arias barrels in from a distance, and now that little gap between them has got all the way down to 0.4 of a second. Oscar Mangan is coming up as on the screen there. Sorry, he came up in red on my screen. I was wondering what was happening in the timing table.
Jumantas is actually finding himself in a little bit of trouble here. He's got Marcin Kovas right on him, so he went a little bit wide. He's making a couple of mistakes here. This could be interesting. Peter McCann is loving this. He just needs to keep the discipline. But here we've got double slipstream for Marcin Kovas. So let's see. This onboard is going to be great, because he's going to get catapulted out of this corner and potentially take the line into there's good lines from everybody there. But this is exciting. This could be, this is anybody's, this position.
Yeah, that turn 15, that left-hand kink is providing us a lot of action this evening in the 5th round of the IDMC Autumn LMP2 and GT3 season. We're looking at Valentinas Marcinkovas, who qualified P8, I think, around about there, and fell down the order after a mistake early on, but he's right back in the thick of things, and now 3 of these guys going for 1 position. So it remains to be seen who will be the ballsiest to get it.
Yeah, well, I race in leagues with Peter McCann, and he usually wipes the floor with everybody. So people in my community will be seeing how he's doing here, how he's faring here. Yes, he's holding on to P7. He's under tremendous pressure, but you can only imagine how fast the people in front of him are as well. And maybe this is a different stage. Maybe this is more pressure, but yeah, just the level. I mean, I would love to be in a battle like this with the likes of Peter McCann, but. It's you really have to earn it. You really have to achieve it. And the sad reality is, most of us will never get to that level.
Well, that's a depressing thought to finish on there, LD. Thanks very much. Well, now with my new Thrustmaster T LCM load pedals that I got from the Wildfire guys, I might get a little bit closer at least, or at least I'll be consistently slow and not inconsistently slow.
I hate to break it to you, but for the next week or two, you're going to be slower than you were with the Logitech pedals. You're going to even consider switching back to them. You just have to power on through, and eventually you're going to get so consistent that you are going to find yourself being better and battling with different people to the people you usually battle with.
It's just it's not like I have a league race on Saturday. That's kind of an 8 hour. But look, I think maybe 3 hours. Give me a hand there on the R Factor service. Oscar Mangan leading as we look back at Valentina's match and Kovas in that battle. Once again, he's 40 seconds behind him for Rory O'Shea. So for Valentinas, really is nothing to lose. Even if he spins out or he has an accident at this point, he'll probably still finish P9, barring an absolute disaster. However, that gap has opened up again. Arias Mantis is 1.4 seconds now off Peter McCann. As we look at Ben McLaughlin here, he's battling with one of the high pre cars, I think. I'm not sure. He goes down the inside and whoopsie daisy. The engine swaps with the bonnet, and all of a sudden he's looking at what's coming back down the road at him.
Yeah, it's such a these corners are so difficult. Because once you go off that racing line, you are actually dealing with different temperatures. You're dealing with tire marbling, and your own memory is kind of a little bit skewed. You really have to be more alert than when you're just doing your lap after lap after lap, because all of a sudden you're in a different position, you're different braking points, different speeds, and if you can't control that, if you can't keep that completely nailed, you'll see what happens there. You just spin around. And that again just makes it more impressive what the super fast people are doing when they have to contend with the traffic, be it a faster car or a slower car. Can so easily go wrong. It might look cool, calm, and controlled here, but these people are on the edge. As we saw earlier, even Jordan Kelly had a spin, and that's very uncharacteristic. He's lucky to still be in third place. Brian McManus would be in P3, but we could even see Timo Hayden up there as well if that spin had gone a little bit worse.
Yeah, I remember you were saying offline and overtake of 2021 as we wind down. Leicester's major happens at Le Mans, which I very much doubt, because it's hard to think of a corner that will really promote an incredible overtake. But overtake in 2021, I'm going to put out there, if we are doing end of year award, to be Oscar Mangan at Phillip Island in, I think, the reverse grid race of the V8 supercars. My goodness, if I could get a replay of that and show people, if somebody asked me about the standard of the IDMC, I would just show them that clip and be like, this is how good it is. Oscar, I think that's just as you were just saying it, that was the first thing that came into my mind, is how difficult that is, as we see another Ben McLaughlin going around there, doing his best Kylie Minogue impression, as we're on board now with Ari Semantis. With Peter McCann, that gap is really opening up now. It looks like Peter has P7 almost in the bag.
Yeah, Marcin Kovas got close to Yomantis, and Yomantis felt the pressure a bit. We saw him make a little bit of a mistake, and Peter McCann has capitalized. As I say, he's kept a cool head. He had a little bit more time to think about how he was going to handle the traffic. And because Yomantis and Marcin Kovas are still so close together, they have a lot more pressure, because the wrong decision with traffic is going to cost them a position, whereas the wrong decision with traffic for Peter McCann doesn't have the same implications. So he just has a little bit more time to have that discipline. As soon as you make a mistake when you're battling among traffic, you're going to get yourself in trouble and potentially give away that position. The only real position that's in danger on the track at the moment is Yomantis' position.
Oh, Timo Hayden, that apex was about 5 minutes back the other way. I think the Timo Hayden, you know, when you did that joke about the GPS saying you should have taken the last turn, that's kind of almost what happened there with Timo. Went straight through it and out the other side. I think he did something similar in front of Jack. Well, some of you might have seen that on Ronan Hederman's Instagram story. But sorry. Go on, Lawrence. I just want to say we're obviously looking at Oscar Mangan. Just to give you a quick recap, and I'll go to you in a second, LD. Quick recap. Timo Hayden came into tonight in first place on 339 points. P2 was Oscar Mangan on 310, and P3 was Josh Malin on 300. Then in the GT3 class, we had Aidas Staskvikius on 285, then Vladimir Ponomarenko on 266, and Rob Moore on 260, Dennis Hanley Jr. on 255. So we see Oscar Mangan and Josh Malin in the lead, and we see Vladimir Ponomarenko and Dennis Hanley in the lead. That means second and third in both classes are ahead of P1 in both classes for the second last race of the season, which means as we come to the final race, all three are going to be massively close before the end of the year. As Josh Malin goes into pits.
Into the pits again? What's that about?
What's going on here? Drive-through?
Does he have a penalty? I'm not sure. Maybe race control can confirm that with us. That is potentially huge. How long is a pit stop? Jordan Kelly could inherit P2 here.
Maybe he underfueled, which would be a serious result for Kelly.
Oh my god!
That looks like it's been a splash and dash.
Yeah, exactly. He underfueled. Oh my god! I said there were going to be no more position swaps. That's incredible.
Yeah, Jordan Kelly getting ahead of his VRA teammate. That throws the whole. Doing them battling in the championship very closely. Josh Malin just underfueling his car, underfueling by quite a bit because we have another 2 laps left of this race, so it's not like it was last lap slash and dash, but Josh just getting it wrong in the refueling and now losing a position for 2 stops, as you can see next to his name. The 999 car getting it all, or sorry, not the 90 car getting it all wrong.
It's pretty incredible. And now the switch from Jordan Kelly, because as you know, for the podium positions, the gap between the points are greater. I'm not exactly sure the points breakdown, but Jordan Kelly is has a good chance of overtaking Yotautas, who's down in P6. I'm not exactly sure what the point split is between P2 and P6, but that's potentially huge. How much is this going to hurt Timo Hayden, who of course we saw take the whole thing by storm in the first couple of rounds? He really caught everyone cold, didn't he? Everyone else had to practice that much harder because they knew the standard had been upped again. How much is this going to hurt him?
Massively. I mean, depends on where your drop rounds are, and people know we'll obviously, as we go into time, don't be anywhere else. Of course, as we tick over the hour mark now, as Oscar passes the line, so this will be the last lap of the race on board with the man from Westmeath, or not from Westmeath, from Mullingar. Well, Mullingar is in Westmeath, but more specifically Mullingar. It is going to be a very, very tricky one. I mean, and it's the same for Aidas Staskvikius. He was very much in control of things. Vladimir Ponomarenko turns him round. Obviously, Timo's slightly different because Timo's is of his own doing, but still, a post-race control, we'll have to see what's going to happen there. But for Aidas Staskvikius, it's the exact same issue. Came into this round leading in the championship and now sees his closest title rivals ahead of him down the road. And the gap between P3 and P1 is a massive gap. It's much bigger than between P7, P9, or further down the gap. It is a much bigger gap. So it will be very interesting to see where we will be left come the end of the year. Now, we'll give you a rundown of coming into this round again, just to have a quick run over it. But we will go into this last round in a very interesting position. It looks like Aidas will go for another round, which means Vladimir Ponomarenko. So it's expected that Oscar will cross the line first, and then we will have the GT3 cars crossing after him as Oscar goes down the back straight to number 99 car. LD, just before he crossed the line, a very, very, very quick word about his drive today.
Oh, just incredible. Dominated from the start. He's on another level. He's pushed so hard. We know that, you know, he's been good in other classes, and now we see him excel here with the World Cup as well. I mean, he is on his A game. If you were to sign an Irish esports driver right now, he would be definitely in your top selections. He's absolutely just he's dominated. He's putting on such a hard charge for the end of this season.
Yeah, what a brilliant drive from Oscar Mangan, taking P1 here in round 5, and Jordan Kelly coming into P2. He wasn't expecting that, seeing Josh Malin into the pits. Josh, I'm not sure he did there, and Josh showing his frustration. That's really silly. I really hate to see that now, I have to say. That kind of stuff really sees me off. Not happy about that at all. Josh, yeah, crossing the line, gaking P3. Very frustrating for him as Timo Hayden rounds off and finishes P5. Yeah, very frustrating for Josh Malin. Had P2 in sight, made a mess of either pit stop or fueling or whatever. But Oscar Mangan taking another round of this IDMC and showing why the experience counts. Once again, battling at the top and making it count as we wait for the GT3 leaders to come across the line. Here's Vladimir Ponomarenko coming into the final section, and whether his incident with Aidas Sasvikius was fair or not, as Aidas is into second place, I'm just noticing on the timing tables, he has overtaken Dennis Hanley Jr.
That was out of nowhere. Dennis must have had an accident.
Dennis must have had an incident, which means Aidas hasn't lost as much time at all. And there you see, there's Dennis off in the background, and Aidas says, thank you very much. That could be a massive moment in the championship. Aidas taking another couple of points. Vladimir Ponomarenko crossing the line first. Aidas finishing about 16 seconds behind. I imagine that race control won't give a 17-second penalty, you'd hope. But yeah, a very, very interesting race. Plenty of action at the beginning of it. Slightly tailed off towards the end, but a change for P2 in the last lap of both classes, LD. Whether it's through accident or whether it's on track, the incidents never stop coming.
Yeah, and of course, you know, we're fantasizing about points here, but we can't forget that this is probably for some people going to be their drop round. So that's going to affect things majorly. They, of course, can't drop the next round. That is a compulsory round. So going into the next round, when people have applied their drop round, that's when we're going to see how much of an impact these kind of results have. You would imagine the likes of Robert Moore, who didn't have a great evening tonight, this is going to be his drop round. You know, the like Luca Thingard, you know, I know he finished P5 here, but that's a bad result for him. You know, that's not what he wants. He's a championship contender. So it's an amazing one. The GT3 lineup, I can imagine with a drop round, the points that we have seen so far are only going to get tighter together. So yeah, very interesting.
Very, very interesting indeed. Hopefully we'll have Josh Malin joining us in a second as we head to the interviews for this round 5 of the IDMC. But I am joined by the GT3 winner this evening, or at least provisionally the GT3 winner, Vladimir Ponomarenko. Vladimir, thanks very much for joining us. P1, a bit of an interesting race, I suppose. Look, there's only one thing we can start with. That's that incident between yourself and Aidas. I suppose talk us through it from your perspective.
Yeah. So I was rewatching it right now myself because I was not sure what happened. It was a quite hectic situation. So from my perspective, I was already a bit surprised how early he braked for the last corner. Because I had quite a gap and I even braked earlier than usual, like I think 10-20 meters. And still I came very close to him and I was already afraid I would touch him there, but I did not. But he had the inside line, so I thought he would go wide basically in the chicane, so take the long line, go to the outside to have the inside for the left turn. So I turned right and tried to go as tight as possible. But then he went also tight, which I did not expect. And because I was on the curb already, I had no opportunity to brake. Basically, my car was airborne at that point, and yeah, I just went into the back of him. Very unfortunate, and yeah, obviously sorry it went that way. I would have wanted to battle it out on track, but yeah, it's racing. Sometimes that happens, and yeah, at least he came in P2, and yeah, so the damage was not too bad.
Yeah, look, I suppose we've seen similar incidents on track now, as you say. Look, it was just one of those things, but were you kind of tempted to think about giving the position back and maybe trying to fight him again on track, or was it because of the fact that we have penalties after the race that you were just saying, right, I'm just going to put my head down and see where I can finish?
Yeah, so I thought about giving the position back first, but he fell down to P3, I think, and it was like 10-second gap. So I would have like basically lost to, I think it was Dennis on P2. So I didn't want to do that, obviously, to give a position to a driver which was not involved. And also, I was not sure what happened. As I said, it was very quick, and he went very tight, where I thought I was obliged to take the line. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it was probably my fault, but I was not too sure. And I wanted to see first how the race goes. Maybe I just spin out or something. Then it doesn't matter anyway. But yeah, obviously after the race, it's easier to say what happened. And yeah, I will look at it and probably apologize to Idas.
Yeah, well, look, that's racing. I mean, that's just one of those things. We've seen it right across this championship. And you guys, there was some really, really great battling between you guys. Well, look, all throughout the season. But even in this race earlier on, before that unfortunate incident. But look, we were saying the great battling between you two. There was 19 points between you coming into this evening. That gap now is closed down again, which means basically it's a straight shootout at Le Mans in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, I mean, for the spectators, it couldn't be better, I guess. It's I think it will be a bit less though, the gap, because or he will stay in front because we have a drop week, and this cannot be Le Mans by the rules. So yeah, my drop week is basically a bit worse than his, so he will stay in front. But yeah, Le Mans is always good for surprises, big train ride. Everything can happen. You cannot drop this week, so yeah, it counts there, I guess.
Yeah, look, hopefully you see a full grid and the two of you guys battling it out for the IDMC Autumn Season GT3 Championship. Vladimir Ponomarenko, very much congratulations on your win at Suzuka this evening, and looking forward to seeing yourself and Adas do what you do best in 2 weeks' time at Le Mans.
Thank you.
So thanks very much for Vladimir for joining us. LD, we have Oscar Mangin or we have Josh Malin, both very interesting to speak to. Who's your preference?
I mean, which way do we want to do it? Do we want
Should we get both of them in?
That could be good. Let's try it.
All right, we're going to get Josh Malin and Oscar Mangin in. Lawrence, I'll leave you take.
I'm good because I don't know how you're feeling right now, Josh. Not to ignore your amazing drive tonight, Oscar. But Josh, you had a bit of drama. Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, having sort of followed Oscar into the pits, I was a bit too eager in putting the not eager enough, I suppose, in putting the fuel in, and I didn't put enough in just to try and sort of close the gap between me and Oscar. It worked for all bar the last 2 or 3 laps, and then I had to pit because I underfueled. So yeah, really frustrating because I messed up the calculations in my head. I don't have any sort of software like Crew Chief or anything to tell me how much fuel to put in. So yeah, I think for the next one, I think I might have to download some of that. But yeah, it is what it is, and it's really frustrating. But yeah, onto Le Mans.
A huge pity, because we saw you take a second and a half off him, and we saw you charging extremely hard. You got that gap to almost, I think, 2.5 seconds at one stage, and then we were flabbergasted to see you go into the pits. I won't keep you much longer because I understand that. I know that you it's a decent result on paper what you got tonight, but I can understand that you're not happy with that.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It happens in racing, but I'm more frustrated at myself purely because I know that I shouldn't be making those mistakes, and I know that I should sort of try and overfuel and lose a bit of time and get there safely rather than underfuel it and screw myself.
We're just watching this incredible overtake you did just before the chicane. in the fast left-hander. You managed to keep it on the track. That curb is extremely slippy as well. You didn't go wide. Incredible driving. Fair play to you. That was a really good drive. I think we're going to move on to Oscar here. Oscar, that was an absolutely incredible drive. I'm not sure if you can hear us there, Oscar, but yeah, you pretty much dominated that from start to finish. How are you feeling?
Pretty good. This is probably my favorite track on iRacing, so I rarely get to drive it in kind of any track or any series. So I kind of took the opportunity to just enjoy myself. Really, the combo has been really fun to do laps. So yeah, no, happy to get the win. I was really under pressure, I think, from Josh after the pit stop. I was sort of perplexed at how he'd gotten so much time back in the pit stop. I had to check up a bit from I think it was Tony Stack sort of crawled in, and I had to check up as well. So I thought it was that mainly, but I was surprised at the end to see Josh pitting. But yeah, no, happy all the same.
Yeah, 'cause we were just remarking at it. You are, I mean, it's safe to say, not to jinx you with a commentator's curse or whatever, because we've mentioned it so many times already, and you're still here winning races. You're doing well here. You obviously got to do the World Cup event as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So that was pretty good as well. I didn't really have a lot of time to prepare for that. Just kind of busy with work and different things, but it was fun all the same. The combo was good. The car, the new Cup car is fantastic. It's really good. It still has a couple of issues from the old car left over, but it's still it brings out the best sort of in that kind of style of racing, in terms of just like, no traction control, no ABS, lots of power. So I didn't really. I had a bit of a messy race myself. Kind of taking it in the first lap and then kind of just clawing back, and being such a short race, I didn't have much time. But to sort of grab a few battles with a couple of guys was still fun, and the grid itself was stacked. So just to kind of measure up against them was cool as well.
And Oscar, sorry, Kevin Galvin here. Great to, again, look, congratulations on P1, but just about that World Cup as well. Obviously, look, organised by Digital Motorsports, we were lucky enough to work on it. You were involved in it. Just when you see kind of the progression of you are kind of, I would say, Ireland's fastest sim racer, at least in terms of the iRacing service and what you've done, without blowing your trumpet too much. But it is amazing to see, or how much pride did it give you to see, looking back on an event like that was organised by an Irish sim racing group, and to see such an Irish influence on what was kind of such a big sim racing event?
Yeah, it was really good to see the fact that Ireland was at the sort of the backbone of that whole event, and it, the studio, the presentation, everything was fantastic. So the more events like that, the better, to kind of bring or elevate sim racing up into sort of contending with the main esports like CS:GO and League of Legends and all them. So the more events we see like that, the more it just kind of brings everything up in terms of just production, media, sponsors, competition. I mean, the grid itself was basically a PES grid, missing maybe only a third of them. So you could see from that alone that it was definitely at a huge level, and it was great that the guys were involved with it.
And I suppose, look, finally, Le Mans next week, or next 2 weeks' time, should I say? Track that everybody knows so well. How are you going to try and squeeze the most out of it against some guys who would know that track like the back of their hand?
Well, I really don't know the track at all. I mean, I did one race about 2 years ago on it on iRacing, but I know the track layout off by heart and stuff like that, and I would know sort of from watching a lot of guys racing the last week or two on public lobbies. But I've never driven Le Mans in such a high speed car, so I'll definitely have to do a bit of prep work just to kind of learn the kind of guts of the lines and stuff like that. But it's definitely going to be, I think, probably more akin to NASCAR racing with the slipstream, with the high downforce package that we're running. So it'll be really about, I'd say, a lot of fuel saving, but a lot of dicing, just trying to see if we can get away from different packs and split out and stuff like that. But it should be good for a finale.
Yeah, a quick question for both of you there, for Josh and for Oscar. Josh, first, what was your worst round this season? Probably the one that you're going to drop, just for context with the points.
I'm going to be honest, I'm having a bit of a mind blank and I can't remember what my worst finish was. So that's actually a bit awkward. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. So I don't think third. Well, obviously third is not my best finish, but I can't remember whether I finished off the podium. At the moment, I'm just trying to sort of be as consistent as I can, and that sort of blunder in that race didn't exactly help my consistency. So I think this might be one of my drop rounds, but don't quote me on that.
Interesting. And what about you, Oscar?
It's definitely Coda. I think I had a bad race at Monza. I got hit off a couple of times, but for Coda, I had a bit of a disaster. It was going really well for like the first kind of 2/3 of it, and then everything went a bit awry. So that's definitely, I think I got 5th there. So that's probably my worst.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh Malin. Thanks to Oscar. 2 categories. So we've watched the race, we've spoken to the winners in both categories, and we've been conveniently joined by the Niall Maher. When I say the man behind it all, it's really a Ronan took after this season, but Niall is the man behind Digital-Motorsports. Niall, look, another great night's racing off the back of what's been a massively successful Digital-Motorsports World Cup. You must be on cloud 9 these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm jumping in here at the end, but I hope everyone can hear me okay because I didn't get to mic check before that. But what a race. And again, well done to Oscar. And what a drive from Jordan Kelly at the end. Unbelievable. But yeah, it's amazing to see the actually it's not amazing, it's just we're here now. The level of driving and the standard of driving we're seeing is on par with everything we've seen in the World Cup as well. Like IDMC has really shown that it is a legitimate league at this stage. And from Oscar's point of view, I think anyone in the top 5 of IDMC could have put on a good showing. He had an unfortunate run at the World Cup, but it's great to see it all coming together, guys, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's unreal. Sorry for jumping in there. I think it's absolutely unreal. Yeah, we see now. Obviously, Oscar is completely on form at the moment, but we see him being pushed all the time by these people. There's a reason Oscar isn't leading the championship at the moment. Because the other guys are that fast. He's just on a really good run of form. But it just, it is world class. That's proof that it's world class.
Look, I don't have to, and I say we often do this because we're going to talk about a little bit later on ourselves. The risk of this sounding very much talking ourselves up, which we don't want to, because look, there's always improvements to be made. But when I look at these IDMC races, kind of compared to the World Cup, it makes you wonder, it feels like the package that we have, if you combined it with a Virgin Media or an RT or whatever studio, would do really well on Irish television, because it is Irish run, Irish commentated, Irish produced, Irish everything. But the standard that we run the IDMC, standard that we run at the World Cup, the only difference was that we had a big professional esports studio and everything else. And it just goes to show you the potential of our IDMC series. If we did have that studio on board, or if we did whatever, then I actually think that the standard of racing and the standard of the production that we do is, I'm sure those in terrestrial TV would be really impressed by some of the driving that goes on here.
It's actually, here's a bit of feedback. I've been talking to a lot of people in the community, and of course a lot of our sponsors since the event. And one of the big, not criticisms, but the piece that people were saying to me, and not just from the industry, outside of the industry as well, or watching it, we seem to be almost apologetic in saying, this is like motorsport, it's as close, and what everyone was saying was, stop trying to justify yourself. You're here now. This is it. You are a legitimate sport. You have professional drivers, you have teams, you have sponsors, you have prizes, you have a big kick-ass studio. Why do you keep saying, it's it's getting there, or we're trying to validate the whole thing? And that was very humbling, to be honest. Looking back on it, was kind of like, yeah, we need to stop talking and thinking of ourselves almost in that, like, under the shadow of motorsport, or trying to replicate. We all know we're never going to get so real that it is the exact same as real life motorsport, but what it is racing, and it's a different form of racing, and we need to just kind of accept that now, move on, and stop trying to compare, real world motorsports to digital motorsports. It's a complete discipline on its own, and I think, Lawrence, you and I have always had that kind of discussion of, treat it as its own discipline and recognize it as that. And I'm sure, Kevin, you can see that as well. But moving forward, you're dead right. Like, we have the big production stage, we have got the interest of, the big brands, the big sponsors, the big TV channels now, and we have the package. So yeah, it's unlimited where we can go with things.
Absolutely, and just I suppose going into the final round, Niall, I'm almost afraid to ask for your prediction, but I'm almost morbidly curious to see if you tip somebody and they do end up firing into the barrier in T1. How do you think it's going to go in 2 weeks' time, and who do you have? What's your money on?
Look, Timo has really been come in and impressed. He didn't have the best race this round, but blistering pace. You can never ever write off Josh Malin, right? And Jordan Kelly has come back on form. I know I'm mentioning all the usual names there. I think Alex Dunn has had a strong run this season as well, but I'm not going to call someone. I'm just looking. It's like the last round of the Formula One as well, Kevin. I'm just so excited we've come down to the end, and it's all coming down to the last race, dropped rounds and everything aside. You couldn't pick, and as I said, anyone in the top 5 here is world class.
Absolutely, and it's going to be a really, really fascinating final race. Niall, probably shouldn't ask you this, but off the back, I know this could go anywhere. No, I shouldn't ask you this, but off the back of what we've seen at the World Cup, you were saying that you've had some feedback from your sponsors. Where's the next step? Where are we going next? What are we doing next? What's the next thing that we can all look forward to?
I love it. I was thinking for this good. Well, what we're working on now is 4 continental finals. So Europe, Americas, Middle East, Asia, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. So that's what we're sitting down and trying to figure that out, and then obviously the top 10 or 15 from each one of those will feed into the the November World Cup again. It is locked in for next year. It wasn't a one-off event, so we've said we're going to commit to this for 3 years. So that's public. That's what we're saying we're going to do. The challenge is going to be actually pulling all of that together for those different regions, but the model will be, by March, we'll have a European or an Americas, Canada, North America, South America, and those type of regions, just for them to start off. Because I do think it's there. We had over 250 drivers qualify. When you look at the stats of the World Cup, there's 2.5 million impressions. There's 41,000 views of the race now. So the numbers are there, and the interest is definitely there. I think with a little bit of more push, we could definitely get more drivers, and definitely want to see more diversity. We're not just a token on it. That, Kevin. We're actually wearing our heart on our sleeve with that stuff. I think it was a great first attempt at the World Cup. Certainly, the hats off to Benecke. He drove a faultless race, and to do that for 30 minutes, anyone at that level will tell you that's a super elite stuff. So we just want to build on that, and I'm not going to shy away from it. It's going to be a huge challenge. You've seen the amount of work that went into that production, and to try and do 5 of them next year is going to be a full-time job for someone.
I presume you're going to need commentators for all 5 of those.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. I'll make sure the time is booked off work. That's the main thing.
I have your number.
Block. That's going to be happening in your phone now when I get texting every 2 weeks. What's going on? No.
I love the format of it. Just get into it a little bit more. I actually and thanks to everyone in Digital Motorsports and everyone who supported us through it. The feedback has been unreal. I think the pre-race build-up, a lot of people were calling out for that to be introduced into IDMC. So we're going to work on that as well. So somehow figure that out. The analysts and all that. I think we're right in that. And Yeah, I think at the end of this round of IDMC, we're going to have to work out how we do the actual winners and the presentations, because it's hard to beat the fireworks on stage and having Brian and Anna there handing out trophies and stuff. So we're working on that as well. So yeah, a lot to be done. And as you said, I'm on cloud nine. It's I haven't stopped smiling since, to be honest.
Yeah, well, neither have we. And looking back on it, and it is something that we're massively looking forward to. Now, we can't claim to be. I'm not nearly as handsome as Bryn, and Lawrence might wear same amount of makeup as Anna, but I don't know if he quite has the same looks. But yeah, certainly something like that. I completely agree with you now. The IDMC, just that little bit of extra magic, and it'll bring, because the racing is there, and as you say, I think the biggest thing to take from this, from our perspective, is that no longer, and I said it on stream, no longer is it sim racing, no longer is it pretend racing, no longer is it imitation racing. It is digital motorsports, and it is standing on its own two legs, and we're at the forefront of it. So enough of that anyway. Enough of all back clapping. There's plenty of time to do that over a beer. But we're really looking forward to next week. Le Mans, Lawrence, I'm gonna get you to jump in here just before I wrap up. I asked you for your tips for next week. Just speaking from Le Mans as a track, what are the things we're most looking forward to? Bump drafting and slipstreaming and all that good stuff is going to be all over the 60 minutes.
You took the words out of my mouth. Just before I do, I'm going to give a quick shout out to the drivers who were after hopping into chat. Timo Hayden is there, Dennis Hanley Jr., Tony Stack. Welcome along, guys. Thanks a million for joining the chat after your intense race. Yeah, exactly what you're saying, Kevin. The bump draft is going to play a factor, but I think what we're going to see, especially on lap one, is because the straights are so long, you've got the opportunity for a slipstream overtake and then a slipstream re-overtake. And even at Le Mans, sometimes you see it a third time when you get 3 or 4 cars involved. So on the distance of one straight, I know with the chicane in the middle and all that, but that one long back straight, you're going to potentially see somebody take 3 or 4 positions lap after lap. I would love to see that happen. I would love to see that happen with our championship contenders. We're probably going to see it more with the LMPs than with the GT3s, but put some traffic in that mix. And it's anybody's. Like it's just another exciting round. This is why these are the most exciting tracks in the world, and that's why they've been chosen for this multi-class season.
One of the most exciting series in the world, if not the most exciting series in the world. Round. So one final round that the world will be watching is this Sunday, but make sure you're watching this day 2 weeks time as the best of the very best in iRacing go and battle it head to head, Le Mans at night. Those of you with epileptic issues may find it difficult watching with the constant headlight flashing at the night race at Le Mans, but you want to see 2 whites for Indianapolis. We want to see 2 whites for Indianapolis, but until then, in 2 weeks time, song of fun.